Just a little disclaimer, a little information. Just Wednesdays I'm going to try to do more a quicker video, work on the other skills, and then Saturdays I'm going to try to have a narrative game out. This week I think it's going to be Tau versus Custodes. And then on Mondays we will release just the games of me and Rumor. So that's what I'm going to try doing for the first while here. Alright, so this video we're going to go over the two lists that I use for my Custodes. If I'm playing competitive, if not, I just kind of mix them up. But this is just my infantry one for now. I use this one. It's a little harder to use, but I like it. So you have Kyriadraxis with 5 custodian guards. I have 3 shields and 2 guards, 2 spears. A 5 Alaris Terminators with spears with the Alaris Terminator captain with the Ceaseless Hunter. 3 Venatari. Another 5 Alaris Custodes. The Custodes Assassin. Prosecutors, and Trajan Valoris with 5 Wardens. And this comes to 2,000 exactly. I'll go over exactly why I take these units in a moment here. Alright, so here's just a few general kind of tips I use just for when I play this army. Target priority. Because you get such small amount of units, you really got to know what you can kill and what can kill you. Because if you're charging something and you don't kill it, and it can come back and kill a few of your models, and it really makes a difference knowing what exactly you can kill, with possibly using your Terminators with the reroller wounds, using what Katata use. I recently fought the Orcs, and I really used the -1 to hit Katata, even when I got the charge, because I knew he would be able to get off a fight first, or even that I wouldn't be able to wipe the unit at -1 to hit, so I wouldn't lose as many units or the remaining models in his clapback. So eventually I was able to just kill enough of them that eventually I was able to wipe the units over the turns and win the game. Be defensively aggressive with them. I find I play like that. You want to kind of get on your objectives and get on your points and really use your sticky objective. It's an underrated stratagem. You can use that for 1 CP as long as you hold it in the command phase. It might be the movement phase. I should really look, but either one of those helps you, so you can just be able to hold on to a point and move on. But you got to make sure they can't come back and steal away from you. So you want to get on the objectives before you start pushing out. I usually wait till turn 3 till I set up my push out before I really kind of put my units in danger. I also like to use my 2 Terminator units as I'll pressure them, and I'll use it to hopefully draw out their reserves or their big units, so I can hopefully not have to worry about losing my home field objective or any of the objectives that I already have, and I can start pushing out with the units that are on the objectives. And I'll show you a few other just how I use the units as I go through them too in the video. And here is some little tip of how you get around fight first, or even defend against someone trying to stop you from getting fight first, or vice versa. So what you can do is what people can do is they can declare this unit as a charge, and they'll charge them. Let's say they'll just get like they're that far away, and they get like a 6. So maybe they'll move in here. Move in here, move in here, move in here, and now just to move like within that. See, they're like this. And now the pylon is done after activation. So these Terminators they're not targeted, because that's how you use fights first. We're starting off here, they haven't been targeted by anything, so they can't pop fight first. So now I activate these guys, and for my pile-in, since I am closer to these guys than these fellas, I can pile in and do my attacks. And since the game goes activation to activation, they can't they can't say, okay, well now I can use fight first. Nope, these guys are already activated. You have to wait till after these guys are done activating. So that's the way you can get around fight first. And ideally you would have a bigger unit to do that with, and you would kind of try to pile a bunch of these guys in here. This is the Trajan and Warden's unit, and I'll just talk a little bit about how I use it. And he has fights first. It's a moment shackle, so you can either use once per game a fights first ability, or gives himself a 2-up invulnerable save, or doubles his attacks. And there's ways you can play around with the, not much with the 2-up invulnerable, it doesn't come up much with the double attacks, and there's just some ways you can play with that. So, but the big thing I use him for is the fights first ability. It makes him so people don't want to interact with him. I've had people will ignore him, and if you ignore him, you can kind of put him where it's hard to ignore him or it's really detrimental. You put him in the center, and if people try to ignore him, then you have the center all game. Has a 5-up feel no pain. He's a tanky fella. If you're on objective and someone charges you, if you have enough CP, you can pop fight first and then pop his moment shackle and crank off 12 attacks. And if you really are feeling spicy, you can even pop epic challenge, and you can use those 12 attacks on a character that might charge you. Maybe Gazgal charges, and you can, if you have 3 CP, you pop those fight first and the epic challenge, and you pop moment shackle 12 attacks, and you snipe out Gazzy or someone. And I like putting them with the wardens, because the wardens have -1 to wound if you're higher strength than their toughness, so it makes a very good guard unit for him. And then you don't get the reroll wounds on the objective, but the -1 to wound, and then once per game they can pop up a 4-up feel no pain. So it really helps Trajan stick around. You couldn't put him with guard, and you can rapid ingress him or get onto objective and maybe reroll his wounds. But with the 5-man groups, it's harder to hold on to an objective. And really, I like to put him in the middle of the board. So you have him in the middle of the board with wardens, he sticks around and makes him hard to charge. But if you have him with guard, they can kind of shoot down the guard and then charge you, and then it's not quite as much of a threat. So the wardens really helps Trajan stick around if you're gonna stick with Trajan. And I take him over a shield captain just because the fights first ability. The moment shackle really gives you a lot of different tricks. You can use the epic challenge, you can pop your own fight first to 2 CP, and then use the moment shackle to crank out 12 attacks. He's very versatile, so I like using him instead of any of the captains or the blade champion. These are the Alaris Terminators. I really enjoy these units. There's a lot of bonuses to these things. I'll go over them, just don't mind my rambling. I'll try to cut out all the side rambles, but we'll get through it. So we have the captain here. I bring the captain mostly for just popping -1 damage anytime I get shot at. You know, maybe even when you get charged. It really helps keeping these things alive, having 4 wounds each, 4-up invuln. Like if something charges you, something shoots you with, damage too, you can really neuter their damage. You can also use them for the free Slayer of Nightmares and give yourself +1 to wound against the vehicles or monsters. It's handy, but really the -1 damage is the big thing for him. It really helps keep this unit alive and makes it a big threat. And then the Terminators themselves, they are amazing just for the fact that they're toughness 7. Toughness 7 makes so if they shoot you with, anything strength 12, they're wounding you on 3s instead of 2s, which, most Terminators, or any other infantry, is mostly wounding on 2s. And then I find there's a lot of strength breakpoint of 6 in this game. There's a lot of stuff. Like I have World Eaters, and a lot of times their charges will bring up to 6 or strength 6. Or there's a lot of armies have strength 6 weapons, and having toughness 7 bring them up to wounding on 5s. And then if you put -1 damage on them, Arcane Genetic Alchemy, it makes them really tough. And then you can deep strike them, which is amazing. So that you can drop them anywhere on the board, 9 inches away from someone. Rapid ingress for this unit is amazing. You drop this, if they somehow make a mistake in their back lines, and you drop this on them in turn 2 in their back lines, it is a huge pain to remove. You can't just ignore it, because they will kill everyone in your back lines and then come out and take your center objective. So you can't ignore them. So what I like to do is I will move my Kyria Draxus unit onto an objective. I will move Trajan onto the objective, and I will rapid ingress these guys. Or Golden Light them. I'll show you there's a few things I'll talk with that as well. But you can just rapid ingress somewhere where, you don't have to threaten an objective with these guys. It's putting them somewhere where they can't be ignored. And you don't have to rapid ingress them or deep strike them or Golden Light them right into danger, like where you're like, I need to not make this 9-inch charge, or I'm going to be shot to death next turn. Maybe put them somewhere behind a wall where they can't ignore it. They can't just, okay, I'm just going to go buy these guys and go do what I was going to do. It's like, no, I have to change my plan now and ignore your guys on the objectives and take out these Terminators, or I'm going to start losing parts of my army. So that's why I have the other group of Terminators. You take out this captain, and you just have another group. And I will start, sometimes I'll start them both on the board. Sometimes I'll put one of them in rapid ingress, but I will always usually start one of them on the board, just because they have Golden Light, which is a reposition ability that allows you can do it in turn 1 if the opponent goes first. So it's Golden Light. It's so once per battle at the end of your opponent's turn, if the unit is not within engagement range of 1 or more enemy units, you can remove it from the battlefield, and then reinforcement step of your next movement phase, set it up anywhere in the battlefield that is not more than 9 inches away from the enemy model. So yeah, so you can use this in turn 1 if you go second. And you usually use this to get them up the board. You put them on the board, and then you hopefully find a place where you can crank them up the board. And you, like I said, don't put them in somewhere where they get shot, but put them somewhere where it's almost like a staging ground. Okay, now maybe next turn when I go, I can get out and shoot something. I can move further and shoot something. Like, you don't always have to worry about getting out and doing something with them, because they're such a threat that you can kind of put them somewhere and they just can't ignore them. They might try to go around them, and that's where you just kind of rapid ingress the other ones in. But I take all spears with these fellas. Spears, everyone knows, not everyone, but spears over axes. The axes are 1 less attack, 1 less AP, 1 more damage. Okay, you do the math, it just doesn't come equal to the same. So you always just take spears. Spears have 1 more attack, 1 more AP. They hit on 2s. So yeah, the axes hit on 3s, 1 less attack, and 1 less AP. For 1 more damage, that's not worth it. So hopefully in the codex there's something to use axes, because the axes look awesome. Half my guys are modeled with axes. So yeah, you just use your spears. You don't use a Vexilla with them, just because they're not made for standing on objectives. They're made for threatening people and just causing people to make mistakes. Or, like, I'll also use them to maybe have Trajan in the middle, and so they go, okay, now I got to put a lot of stuff into Trajan. You will, rapid ingress or deep to strike these guys in and start giving Trajan some backup. Then maybe they put, okay, this is much I'll need to take out Trajan, so I'll put this towards the middle. I'll do other stuff with my rest of my armies. Now you put those Terminators there. Now you can probably take out stuff, they sent to take out Trajan's unit, or cause them to make a lot more decisions. Oh, and the amazing thing about these things is that they can re-roll their wounds against character units, vehicle units, and monster units, so anything important pretty much. And if it's chaff, you're just going to mow through it. And they're one of the most reliable chaff unit killing things we have, other than Kyria. Draxus is pretty good, but they have the grenade launchers. So if you're shooting at anything with 10 people in it, you shoot anything with 20, especially 20, and each one of them is a grenade launcher, D6 shots, hitting on 2s, AP 1, strength 4. And then if they have a character in that unit, you're really rolling your wounds. You can really pump out a lot of damage. We'll talk tanks and anti-tank, but these things can rip apart any kind of tank. You just, how many attacks? They got 5 attacks each with the captain, and he had 7. So 32 with the captain. Use lethal hits, re-rolling wounds, strength 7. And if you have the AP or the CP, or you have, you want to use the captain's free ability once per round, just give him Slayer of Nightmares. So now you are wounding on 4s instead of 5s with re-rolling wounds. You're most likely going to destroy any vehicle, or really wounded enough where you don't have to worry about no more. With my captain, he has Ceaseless Hunter. And what Ceaseless Hunter allows you to do is fall back and charge, which is huge. So these guys don't have to worry about getting stuck, because some people will try to gum you up, and so then you can fall back and charge, or you can, wreck a unit, fall back and attack another unit. It also gives you ability for once per game, move up to 6 inches. And it's amazing for, so if people maybe try to get up for a charge against you and you're maybe not quite on objective, you can kind of shimmy up a little bit, and now you're on objective, now you can use fight first. Or maybe you don't want to get the charge on this particular unit. Maybe with their movement they got 4 inches away from you, so you pop that thing, and now it makes their charge a lot harder to charge you. There's a lot of things you can do with that. There's a lot of play you can do with Ceaseless Hunter, and that's the best enhancement. There's the Veiled Blade, and it's 2 more attacks. You can use it on the Blade Champion, but see, sometimes Era just has so many more tools you can use with the all game fallback and charge and the once per game move 6 inches. It might be 5. I'll have to look it up. I think it's with those move things, it's up to your max of your actual models of your unit. And the other enhancements, you have Inspirational Exemplar, and that gives you a Leadership 5 on the unit that you have it on, or the model. And it gives you a once per game, turn Battle Shock off, which is handy if you play Tyranids. It's I would almost want to say that's getting close to auto include, just because you don't want to get Battle Shock with your units. It makes turn off fight first, turn off your AGA, your Arcane Genetic Alchemy. You don't want that, or even just turn off use from stopping the objectives, because usually a lot of times you only get that one guy in the objectives. So if one of them gets Battle Shocked, it's not like you have another guy standing on there going, okay, well, I didn't get Battle Shocked, so now we still hold an objective. And then you have Unstoppable Destroyer. I don't ever use this one. This one is so useless. There's something with you charge in. If you 2 to 5, you do D3 mortal wounds. On the 6, it's just 3 mortal wounds. Once per game, you can Battle Shock someone that's 6 inches from you when you in a charge. That's one of the ones. Most of this army I know quite off by heart, just from playing. I've played them so many times, and I don't know what that is because I never use it. One last tip I'll tell you with them I like to use them is gold. The Golden Light, you can, especially if you somehow get turned 2. But so what you can do with these, so especially in Dawn of War, so alongside engagement, or either way, so what you do is you'll place them down. I'll usually just use one to do it, just in case something happens. So I'll put one of these Terminators you down as a bait. So you put it on, maybe you'll load one side of the board, go forward, maybe the center, and another objective in your home objective. So the other one, you will put your Terminators, and then, so they have to put something there. They just don't want you to somehow, especially if you have the other side of the board loaded, they just can't let you just walk up and take this objective too. So they have to put something over there, and it's 5 Terminators, so they have to put something there. That's what's quite powerful. And then even if you go turn 1, put them somewhere where they won't get shot up, and then Golden Light them in the end of their opponent's turn, and just move them to the other side of the board for the rest of your group. And that, you'll lose that objective, but that really makes it quite strong. And so now your whole side of your army, your whole army's on one side of the board. You have maybe hopefully the center going towards the other objective, and then your center objective. Or, if there's other objectives. Either way, and then that makes the opponent that put all their stuff there to counter your Terminators have to turn those around and run them all the other side of the board. Like, it really puts people in a bind. I did that against the Orcs, and it just put him quite behind for the whole game. He wasn't able to get over and get enough units on Trajan to kill him, and he was able to hold on to the center for most of the game. And I was never really contested too much from the other objective because most of my guys were over there. I cleaned it up, and then time he got the rest of his guys from the left side of the board over to me, it was too late. That's the tips for my Alaris. I don't really have anything else I can think of. If not, I'll make a part 2 sometime. And this is one of my underrated units. I used this at the first of the 10th edition, and then I stopped using her. But now I'm back to using her again, because I use her almost for a different purpose. A lot of the time, the first edition, I used her for she's an 18-inch on a 2-up in your command phase. It gives your whole unit 18-inch lone operative. I used to kind of use her for that, put on objectives, but there's a different purpose I use her for now. I did look up the objective just because, I can't be the Custodes guy if I don't know my stratagem, so it is in the movement phase when you can stick an objective. And you might ask why I have so many shields. I have 3 shields and 2 spears. It's because more see it as a unit just adding health to Kyriadraxis, the Inquisitor. And the spears are just, to help clear out some chaff or stuff. It's more just to keep the gun alive. Because what Draxis has 2 weapons. And what her abilities are, it's possible to hit against a Xenos race. It doesn't help too much in the Custodians. Sometimes someone has stealth or -1 to hit or something like that, or it does help. And then she has the Psychic Veil, like I said, on a 2-up in your command phase. You get 18-inch lone op on your unit. On a 1-up, she takes D3 mortal wounds, or not a 1-up, but just a 1. She has 2 weapons, this is why I use her as a shooting platform, really. Is she has the Dirge Singer, It is 4 attacks, ballistic skill 3. So if you're shooting against Xenos, that's hitting on 2s. Strength 4, AP 0, damage 2. That's nothing too fancy, but she's also anti-infantry 4, devastating wounds assault. Spears and the swords, and they all have assault, so you can advance with them onto objectives. You can advance and shoot with them. You need to get to where you need to go. And then she also has a Psychic Tempest, so it means you can use both these weapons or both these attacks at the same time. So she has the Psychic Tempest, and it is indirect fire if you want it to be. It's a psychic attack. It is 6 attacks, ballistic skill 3, so 2 is with Xenos, strength 6, AP 0, damage 2. Once again, not too fancy, but has sustains hits too, so any 6s, it's 3 hits. And then with her combined with the guard, you're re-rolling your 1s to wound, and then if you go on an objective, you're re-rolling all those wounds. So if you're shooting at an infantry unit, you can hunt for those anti-infantry 4 devastating wounds. And then when you never you get lucky with your sustain hits too, and you might be a wipe. I've wiped out whole squads of Von Ryan Leapers, 6 of them with this person, just because. The guard's ability also, once per game, they can shoot twice. So if you get yourself on an objective, you can shoot, use that to shoot. That's when you would want to shoot twice, because then you get to re-roll your wounds if you can control it. So she can really wipe out infantry and just chaff that people try to put in front of you a lot easier than people would think, because Custodes don't really have a lot of good shooting. A lot of their stuff is even like her stuff, low strength, low AP, but the devastating wounds and just the Psychic Tempest, be able to use both those in the same turn. You can get a lot of damage out. Psychic Veil, having that just on an objective too, just having someone way back there, they can't shoot at you with their anti-tank, have them in the open, just kind of dare people to come at you, so you can just kill them with your Inquisitor. So that is that unit. I also have the Vexilla. I have that just to add the OC, so even if they get battle shocked, you're still 1 OC. If, it takes that whole unit there, that's 15 plus her 1, so it's 17. So it's a lot of OC, so it's hard to take that unless you put something on some high OC or put some actual damage in to try to kill them. These are the Venatari. I like them. They give you a tool to steal home field objectives. They have a free rapid ingress built in, even if you've already used it with another unit. So I use them. They're fantastic for dropping down and threatening the back line, since they have a movement of 10. So you don't have to worry, and they fly. So you don't have to worry about the rapid them ingress into somewhere dangerous. The big movement helps you. I would like to run 6, but I still think they're a little bit too overcosted for what they do. I've used them even just to counter people from trying to take them from my home field objective. Drop these back, because they're so fast. You don't have to worry about, like the rest of your units. You really have to think where you're going to even deploy them, to golden light them, to deep strike them, rapid ingress, anything. You really have to think, okay, after I do this job, am I going to be stuck here doing nothing for the rest of the game because there's nowhere to go? Venatari, the movement allows you to drop you somewhere and not have to worry about that for the rest of the game. So that's what I mostly use them for. I need to get a little better at them. They're probably the unit on them. Oh, there's another unit on here I'll talk with. I'm probably the weakest with, but this unit, more practice. That's why I'm kind of using this more infantry list for here more lately. Take spears with them. You can take maybe take 1 buckler. I didn't actually realize until I actually have them sneaking built that you can put different weapons on these, and you can put a shield and 2 spears, 2 shields and a spear, 3 shields. So the shields give you 1 extra wound, but you don't attack near as good. So it's good maybe just have 1 shield. If you're running and run 6 of these, I'd say at least 1 shield, just so you can soak up extra wounds. Because having these guys die is kind of poopy, because especially running the 3 here, if you start losing these guys, their utility goes down. All right, these are the prosecutors. They're pretty simple. I have 2 units of them. They just, objectives, stand on the point. Pretty simple. They're 40 points. They're, stand them in a corner close to when you deploy them, close to a corner in case you get investigative signals. You can also use them to deploy pretty aggressively. So if you get first turn, and so you can maybe get aerial denial or deploy teleport homer without having to throw a big unit of custodian guard or Terminators on there. Another thing you can also do is get, hopefully, if they don't get killed before you get there, is get them on an objective and then put your Custodes behind the wall and just as a counter charge, and hopefully cause the army to have to come up and, you know, remove them and, you know, put themselves to a counter charge. You can drop the assassin and you can put a Eversword in there, and then you can fit some Witchseekers in there. I think it would actually give you not enough to have 2 units, but you get to 1 unit and a 1 unit of prosecutors. That wouldn't be too bad either. Right. This is the list with the tanks. It just has 2 prosecutor units, only 4 units of Custodian Guard with Kyria, and then we have 2 units of 5 LRS Terminators, no Shield Captain, and the only character we have is Stratagem with the 5 Ordnance. So we have that, and then the 2 tanks. And for the tanks, they're your best. They're really the only good anti-tank in Custodes, but it's Forge World, it's expensive. You can, you know, there's other ways you can get a hold of them as well. They're the best unit you have for your anti-tank. Use the Blaze Cannons, 4 shots, you know, lethal hits against vehicles and monsters. Strength 12, they're twin links, so you reroll your wounds. AP 3, damage D6+2. Movement 10, so it's good movement on the tank. The gun's really good, and it sounds really good. But the thing is, it's very swingy, the D6+2 damage, so you're like with the lethal hits and the twin linked, so you're getting a lot of hits and wounds through, but a lot of the time you roll your 2 dice and, you know, it's a 1 and a 3, so instead of getting a pile of dice or even getting all 4 through, you maybe get all four through, and, you know, you roll a whole bunch of 1s and 2s and then just swing. And they're great for screening your deployment, so they're great for that. They're quite tanky, but I find you want to use them to actually kind of push a little bit, even if you can get 1 onto a forward objective some after you've maybe cleaned up a little bit, because they don't, especially if you get lucky and you destroy all the anti-tank you want to get and all the tank units, and that they don't really do anything after that. You can shoot them at infantry, but they just really start going down in their value. So you want to try to find other ways other than just shooting with them. You know, they are a big shooty tank, but if you can find other ways to use them for utility and just move blocks or anything, especially once all the big units have been down that, you know, you want to shoot down, you can just kind of use them for getting in the way, you know, block infantry, block anything. So that's the tanks. I like them because they're fun to actually just have something other than just infantry, you know, running at melee. But like I said, and they're cheap, $2.15, but they're swingy, and sometimes the swinginess can be very makes you have some tough decisions sometimes. All right, that's pretty much this list. Like I said, it's pretty much the same kind of infantry, except you get a little less of them. You don't get the Venatari, you don't get the Shield Captain. You have the tanks, but like I said, the tanks can be swingy, and then if you're not using them to be doing stuff other than shooting, then the points value goes down quite a bit. The last unit in this list is the Assassin, the upsy downsy one. She's really good for the upsy downsies. You know, at the end of every opponent's turn, if she's not in engagement, you can pick her back up, deep strike her down in your next movement phase. The great thing also is her Vect. So it only works against battle tactics, but she can make that battle tactic cost 1 extra CP. Great for orcs, use it on Artist Nails. It's great for Space Marines, use it on their Armor Content. I will use it on Chaos Space Marines Fight on Death. I can't remember if their reroll wounds is a battle tactic, but I'll use it on the Fight on Death. And then some armies, I fought the Votan. The Votan didn't really have anything that's worth it, so guess what else is a battle tactic? Command point reroll. Make that cost 2 CP, and that will really kind of neuter anyone that you can't really see a good one to Vect. I think maybe the Tau have Stim Injector, so just that's their 6 up, feeling no pain. It's not really worth using. I'd rather use it on their rerolls. I mean, if they're rerolling a railgun shot, make them cost 2 to do it. You have to be careful with it because you don't want her killed before you get to Vect something, before you get to make it 2 CP or 3 CP, whatever it was. He had 1 more CP. If she dies before that, it's such a waste of points. And then she's really good for the end game, because once, you know, models start dying, Turn 4, turn 5, when there's a lot more room to deep strike, and if you get, deploy Terrible Horners behind enemy lines, she's already deep strike, you picked her up, you put her back down. I mean, you don't know until you draw the cards, but you pick her up at the end of the opponent's turn, so you draw your cards and you see what you got, and she's great for getting you points. She can get you a lot of points, but like I said, do not get her killed early. That's 90 points out the window. Yeah, so Trajan also has the ability, so if he's leading a unit, he can ignore all modifiers to his characteristics, his hits. It depends on what you're playing. He can also ignore like the modifiers to AP or wounds. To me, it's kind of written like that. It says excluding saves, so let's and it's their arguments that it's weapons are different characteristics. But it also specifies an actual weapon. Weapon skill you can't, not weapon skill, but hit you can't change that. So it looks like to me it seems like it's everything. And without that, it really neuters you. If you find someone that's -1 damage, your damage just drops. So, but I'll always ask the person who I'm playing what they what like. A lot of times I don't use it just because I don't want to cause any feels bad or anything, but without having it feels bad for me because Custodes aren't the highest in the tier, and not having that, it gives you some Deathwing Knights. They have -1 damage built in, and they got the 4 wounds, and it just really brings your Warden, especially if you use with some Wardens, brings your Wardens down to damage 1. And they use Armor of Content, so they're saving on 3s. So it really brings your one kind of big nuke unit down to, but to each his own, So that's why I always ask, what would you prefer before I actually go and use it? And because different tournaments use different rules, but it's half the time it's just playing down here in the basement. So who really cares that much? And I'll give my thoughts on the Custodes. I love playing them. I think I've already stated, but people know in the meta that they're not the highest in competitive, but that's, I think, a lot because of the devastating wounds change kind of hurt them a bunch. And also, I think if that's kind of a feels bad thing. I think if you had another detachment, you wouldn't even think about it. It would be like, who cares, or if you never had it, but it kind of feels bad, and it feels like you don't really have a detachment rule. We all would like to have it back, but you just got to work around it. The points went up, kind of hurt quite a bit, so they're quite expensive. Characters are expensive. You don't have a lot of room for extra stuff, and then a lot of your extra units they're not unusable, unplayable. You can play them with your friends, go ahead. But if you're going for more competitive, a lot of the stuff isn't usable. And that's no fun. I want to use Sagittarium. I want to use my Dreadnoughts. Like I have. Once everything's paying up close to 7,000 points of Custodes, so I want to use the different units, but they're so dreadful, some of them, like the Palace Grav Attack. Dreadful unit, but it looks awesome, so sometimes I will use it, but it doesn't do anything. So that's, I don't want to go harp on the bad about them because I love them. They're my favorite army. I love the way they look. I like how they play. They play elite. I like the higher skill ceiling of them. Like I said, they're easy to learn how to play, but to be good with them and real good with them and not just get rolled by devastating wounds, you gotta play smart. So that's pretty much it. I think that's the end of my video.